What are we discussing on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast? How the next 30 days will determine if the D-backs are going to be trade deadline buyers or sellers, and why we need to rely on the offense in this next series against the Atlanta Braves.
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas, multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer. So please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there, you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. On today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, we're going to be discussing how the next 30 days will determine if the D-backs are going to be deadline buyers or sellers. We'll discuss why the offense is the most important piece of the D-backs winning their next series against the Atlanta Braves. Then we'll wrap up the podcast by discussing, are the D-backs bullpen roles finally being defined? So jam-packed pod for you guys as always, but first I want to say thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. And one of those platforms is YouTube. Please hit subscribe to Locked on Diamondbacks on YouTube. We try to go live on YouTube Sunday through Thursday after D-backs games. It's an interactive show. Drop comments in the YouTube section. I'll read them as the show goes on. So if you want to know when I go live, follow me on social media at CreatorThomas24 for the personal account, or look up Locked on Diamondbacks, both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle. I tweet out before I go live, or hit that little bell icon next to the subscribe button on YouTube so you also get notified when I go live. But now let's jump in to the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Back here on the Locked on D-backs podcast, and now let's discuss the D-backs month of June. We discussed a little bit on yesterday's podcast, but really just hammer down the point on how important the next 30 days will be, because the month of June is going to decide the rest of the D-back season. It's going to decide whether they're good enough to make it to the postseason, whether they should blow it up, start rebuilding, start preparing for 2026. Like, that's what the next 30 days will determine. And people say baseball season is so long. Well, guys, we won't even, by the time we get to the halfway point, we'll know if this D-back season is over or not, because a bad month of June, with the way the rest of the National League is playing, you might be too far out of it. By the time you get to the deadline, by the time you get to July in the summer, you have a bad month of June with the way the rest of the National League looks, right? The NOS, the Padres, there's rumors about them trying to go after Duran from the Red Sox. The Giants, I'm sure, want to add some talent considering they're just a couple games back of the Dodgers. Still got the Dodgers, of course. You look around the rest of the National League, Cubs playing really good baseball. I mean, the Cardinals are playing good baseball. The Brewers are 4 games above 500. The Mets are good. The Phillies are good. The Nationals aren't a good team, but they just beat the D-backs, right? So there's a lot of quality talent right now around the National League. And it's like the D-backs struggle in the month of June. They might be too far out to get back into it. Now they're 5 games back. I think that's still good enough for right now, but that's 7-8 games by the time you get to the deadline. You might need to have a uncomfortable conversation with yourself in the mirror and say, should we blow it up? Should we start to rebuild? Because last year, June was a month where the D-backs turned it around, right? They went 16. They were like 5 games below 500 entering June. They finished June 16-11, and that was the start of their turnaround for the rest of the 2024 season. Whether Burns is on the D-backs or not, because I'm recording this at noon on Monday before the Corbin Burns major injury announcement. Whether he's on the D-backs or not, the D-backs have enough talent to go on a run again like they did last year. From a talent standpoint, this team is really not much different than last season's. You lost Christian Walker, but it's not like Josh Naylor has been chopped liver for the D-backs. On the time of me recording this on the off day, a 300 average, a 819 OPS, like that definitely plays. Maybe the defense is not as good as Christian Walker, but 7 bombs, 37 ribbies, 9 stolen bases, that plays for the D-backs. Jock Peterson, he's gone. He was a great contributor. I mean, I know Pavin Smith had an up and down May. He still has a 291 average and an 870 OPS. And so when you think about the lineup guys that left for the D-backs, we did kind of replace that production. And then you look at the rotation, it's pretty much all the same guys as the last year. The only question is, can some of the guys that were playing well for the D-backs last year get back to that level? Because it's not like we're lacking any more talent from the team that we had in 2024 that went on the run. The only thing we're lacking is production. And for the D-backs last season, when we look at the first half of the year, I know the offense finished as a great, it was the best offense in the league, but we forget Corbin Carroll was a top 10 terrible player by WRC Plus in the National League last year. Eugenio Suarez was like top 30 worst, and those two guys turned into MVP players in the second half of the season. We don't really need that from anyone in our lineup this year, but we need that from our rotation. Our Corbin Carroll in our rotation this year is Zach Gallen, a guy who's been a Cy Young finalist, top 5, a couple times, or top 6 at least. That guy has struggled so much. And if he can get anywhere back to being a frontline starter for the D-backs, like how Corbin Carroll turned into an MVP player in the second half of last year, that's huge for Arizona. If Brandon Pfaadt can pitch more like the guy that we saw in April with like a 2.8 ERA instead of the guy that we saw in May with like an 8.1 ERA, that would be huge for the D-backs. And if the bullpen can find their groove again, if Ginkel can come back from AAA, his little stint, come back firing, if Beeks can get back in order, because I do think he's good, but if you have to rely on Beeks to be your go-to high leverage reliever, that's the issue. If we could get AJ Puck back and healthy, hopefully in the second half of the season, that could be huge as well. And so for the D-backs, it's just about a lot of their talent producing to the level that we expect them to, right? If this is a team that's 7 games back, 8 games back of a wild card by the deadline, I would seriously think about blowing it up. Trade Zach Allen. You could get a nice return for him. And I definitely think he would be a stud immediately somewhere else. Trade Suarez, who looks like he's on his way to another 35 home run plus 100 RBI season. And then you would also have to think about maybe trading some of your outfielders. A Lourdes Gurriel, $13 million player option with a club option the year after. He's all of a sudden on a little heater. You can maybe sell him when his value is the highest. Randall Grichuk never gets playing time with the D-backs, but always has a good slash line, little mutual option. I would think about trading both of those guys. Essentially, any pending free agent for the D-backs, I would think about moving, except for Merrill Kelly and Josh Naylor, because I want to re-sign those guys. I would do anything to re-sign Merrill Kelly. I do want to bring back Josh Naylor, but Merrill Kelly is a must-have for me this free agency. I would love to bring Gallen back, but such a down year. He's going to get so much money, and I think he'll be better somewhere else. Kelly, I think, is still a stud that you could get for the cheap and would love to bring him back. But for this D-backs team, they have to start getting better production from some of their best players, like the Zach Allen. Still need Corbin Carroll to break out of his slump. That would be very nice as well. If the D-backs are within spitting distance, then I think you have to think about adding at the deadline. If they're within, a few games of the wild card, this is already the most expensive roster in D-backs franchise history. If we are competitive at the deadline, I would rather try and win than blow it up. But enough recent history has told me not to get too excited about this team. Now we'll discuss why the D-backs offense is the most critical part to the D-backs winning their next series against the Atlanta Braves in segment number 2. But hey, I first want to talk to you guys about Supply House, because Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy to use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. For the trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM. Start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Back here on the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, and now let's discuss why the D-backs offense is the most critical piece if they want to win the next series against the Atlanta Braves. And honestly, when previewing this series, the reason I say that is because I look at the pitching matchups and I do not feel good about the D-backs entering this series. And the D-backs are supposed to be a team with elite pitchers, a talented rotation, but considering some of the recent pitching game logs we've seen from some of our guys, and with Corbin Burns going down with injury, doesn't make us feel good about this next series against Atlanta. Because in game number one, the Braves do have their stud back in Spencer Strider, still trying to get his groove a little bit right, coming back off missing the entire season last year with Tommy John surgery. So this is a guy that's still trying to work his way back into form, but we know he's still a guy with elite stuff, high strikeout, stuff. The only issue is he's probably still not fully to the level that he wants to be. He's still not a guy that's going out there and throwing 100 pitches. If you look at his game log this season, has never thrown more than 5 innings pitched at all so far in 2025. So that does make you feel a little bit good going to this matchup that you might have an opportunity to get to the Atlanta Braves bullpen kind of early. This is only his third start in the last month. Like, he started April 16th and then missed a bunch of time. And so Spencer Strider is definitely someone that is still being brought back slowly. They're not trying to rush him. They know how important Strider is to the franchise and the future, and he's a core piece. And so Strider is going to go out there, pitch the best of his ability, but the Braves are also not going to overexert Strider. We might only see him for 4 to 5 innings total. Might only see him for 75. Maybe he throws 80, 90 pitches, but I wouldn't expect this to be, 6 2/3, 108 pitches. Like, I don't think Strider's at that point physically yet. And so you look at game number one for the Braves versus the D-backs, Strider versus Zach Gallen. This is going to be a major wild card game and maybe the most important game of the series, because Zach Gallen has struggled so mightily this season. And it just like, why? What has been the issue for Zach Gallen? The other issue is Zach Gallen historically has not always pitched great against the Braves. His last 2 starts against Atlanta, not the best. 5 innings, 3 earned runs earlier this year, fine. 5.1, 4 earned runs last year against Atlanta. It's fine. Want him to be a little bit better. Maybe this could be a start where Zach Gallen looks fantastic because he's been better on the road. He's really liked pitching on the East Coast this season. So maybe Zach Gallen actually steps up in a big way. I think game number one, D-backs versus Braves, is the biggest wild card of this series, because Gallen, it's like, what has happened to you? Our frontline starter, our ace. Is he going to continue to just struggle the rest of the season? Or is he finally going to step up in a game, in a series where we really need him? Or is Spencer Strider, a guy who is so talented coming off the injury, is he going to have his first, whoa, that definitely looks like Spencer Strider is back game? That is what concerns me in game number one. Huge matchup for the D-backs and Braves. Game number two, Kelly versus Chris Sale. Another game where I look at Merrill Kelly, stud for the D-backs, but coming off a recent little run where he looks a little bit more vulnerable. Back-to-back outings where he gave up 4 earned runs, and so it's like going to that series against the Braves where they look like they're getting healthy. They just got Acuna back, like makes it a little bit more vulnerable. Plus, Chris Sale is a guy who seems to pitch, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, seems to pitch pretty well against the Arizona Diamondbacks in his career. Yeah, I'm actually looking at it now. 2.57 ERA in 4 starts against the D-backs. Most recently, earlier this year, 5 innings, 1 earned run against Arizona. I do not like that Chris Sale matchup, but he is a lefty, which should mean guys like Quetzal Marte have a chance of getting going against him. Plus, our righties are hot right now with Moreno, Gurriel, and Suarez. And then you look at that finale for the D-backs. You got Brandon Pfaadt versus Grant Holmes. Grant Holmes having a good season, 3.78 ERA. Meanwhile, Brandon Pfaadt coming off the yes hitter, 8 earned runs without recording an out. Terrible outing by Brandon Pfaadt. The vibes right now for the D-backs starters are just down. Gallen, Pfaadt, Kelly, all coming off not very good starts. Meanwhile, the Braves are throwing out arguably their top 3. Maybe you would disagree with Grant Holmes, but all of them are having really good seasons. That's why we need our offense to really step up in this series, because I don't know if you could trust the D-backs rotation right now. We need the offense to do what they're doing, or to continue to do what they're doing. We know over the last few weeks, maybe situational hitting, maybe it's a little bit more feast or famine with this D-backs offense, but they're still like top 5 in Major League Baseball in runs scored. We finally moved Jerry up to 3rd in the batting order, which I love. I think the lineups that Torey Lovullo threw out in those first 2 games against the Washington Nationals, I want to see more of those lineups, especially that first one against the Nationals. You had, let me just double check who was pitching for the Nationals that day. It was righty Jake Irvin. And so the lineup that the D-backs threw out: Carroll, Marte, Perdomo, Naylor, Suarez, Gurriel, Pavin, Moreno, Thomas. I absolutely love that lineup. You finally have Jerry, number 3 in the order, plate discipline king behind Carroll, Marte. Naylor is your number 4. I like it. Then Suarez, power hitting guy, number 5. Streaky Gurriel, number 6, which I don't mind. And then Moreno's the only one where I feel weird about that number 8 spot. I almost would rather experiment with Moreno as our new number 9 hitter. You stack the lineup the way you just did with your top 6, put Moreno as your number 9, because now he's in that Perdomo mode where he goes from Moreno to Carroll to Marte to Perdomo, then Naylor, Suarez, Gurriel. Yes, you might have a little lull with the Pavin Smith, Alec Thomas back-to-back as your 7th, 8th, but I would love the balance of that lineup. I love some of the newer combinations Torey Lovullo has done recently with the Carroll, Marte, Perdomo at the top, doing a little bit more Suarez maybe as a cleanup hitter, with Josh Naylor, depending on who's on the mound. I like Gurriel more as the number 6 hitter for the D-backs. So I like some of the experimenting we're starting to see with Torey Lovullo in these lineups. Suarez more as a cleanup when there's a lefty on the mound. Gurriel more as that number 6 hitter when there's a righty on the mound. I think those are actually smart decisions. Jerry moving up to number 3 in the lineup, something I've been asking for a ton on the podcast. I wonder if Torey Lovullo is locked into Locked on Diamondbacks, but the D-backs offense is going to need to step up in this series. The righties are starting to play a lot better. Randall Grichuk is swinging a very nice bat. And we also need a guy like Corbin Carroll to wake up. Our best player, arguably, I actually think Ketel Marte is our best hitter, but Carroll's our most dynamic player. And in his career at Truist Park, he is 8 for 25, a 200 average, while he's also in a little bit of a slump over the last couple weeks. Corbin Carroll, if he can step up in this series, we're facing 2 righties in game 1 and game 3. If Corbin Carroll can step up in those 2 games, I think the D-backs are going to have a great chance to win this series. But like I said, I think it's going to come down to the offense, not the D-back starters, because we haven't been able to drop the starters, the last couple weeks. So I want to believe in this D-backs offense to take down the Braves in Atlanta. Now we'll discuss if the D-backs bullpen is finally starting to get some defined roles in segment number 3. But first, I want to talk to you guys about Monarch Money because ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. No more frivolous DoorDash late at night. Plus, it keeps my calorie count low so I can also stay in shape for the gym. Thank you, Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Back here on the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, and now let's discuss if Dbacks bullpen roles are finally starting to be defined, because in that finale against the Washington Nationals, did Torey Lovullo stumble into a bullpen formula that works? Did Torey Lovullo do something in that finale against the Washington Nationals that we typically don't see from Lovullo when it comes to managing this bullpen? And I'm talking about using logic. That's right. Using logic to manage this D-backs bullpen and say, let's put our best reliever, Justin Martinez, as the closer, and our second best reliever as in Shelby Miller as a setup man. Because listen, there's not many instances where the D-backs have a safe situation going into the final two innings, because typically the D-backs will blow it before then, or maybe they don't have the lead, like whatever the reason is. Not many situations where the D-backs, have a 2-run lead, where they're up, have a 2-run lead with 6 outs left. And if they do, typically there's not a very high chance you walk away from that 8th inning going into the 9th inning with still a safe situation, because the 8th inning has been such a nightmare for the D-backs the last few weeks. But we saw Torey Lovullo in that finale against the Washington Nationals say, hey, it's a safe situation, 6 outs left. Let me go with Shelby Miller, who's been holding it down with AJ Puck and Jamar out as a setup man. And then let me use Jamar, who's our best reliever, as the closer. And look at that. D-backs get the last 6 outs. No problem. 4 strikeouts between those two guys. They looked absolutely fantastic. Jamar looked absolutely nasty. Looks like he's 100% throwing 100 miles per hour again. And so all we wanted all season long is for Jamar to be the closer. It's what we've been begging for. We've been begging for Shelby Miller with AJ Puck out to be the closer / setup man for the D-backs. And the only reason it feels like we've even come to this point is because the D-backs bullpen is in shambles. Everyone is either hurt or straight up just bad for Arizona when it comes to coming out the pen. And so we really had no other options but to go with Shelby Miller and Jamar as our 8-9 combination. And little did Torey Lovullo know, using your 2 best relievers at the end of games in safe situations is the best way to win a game. And I hope Torey Lovullo learns from this situation and does it more going forward, uses this combination more going forward, because I do think this is the correct combination to do while you have the bullpen in shambles with injuries and lack of production. I think those 2 guys have to be your 8-9 combination moving forward, because when you think about the Torey Lovullo experience with the bullpen, it feels like he only uses the correct guys when he has to, and not just because it's the right decision. When you think about 2023, for most of the year, the bullpen was pretty up and down, right? Ginkle, Thompson in the first half, we were trying to use as a closer, never really worked out. Just 2023, the bullpen, until we got Paul Sewald and he was shaking the second half, it was just a weird year for the D-backs pen. But then you got to the playoffs, and what happened? Rotation shrink, bullpen shrink, and you pretty much just rely on your go-to guys. And that's what Torey Lovullo did. He resorted to using the same combination 7, 8, 9 every night once we got to October. And guess what? That combination was perfect. Ginkel and Sewald gave up no earned runs until the World Series. At least Sewald did, not Ginkel. Thompson was pretty elite as a seventh inning guy. And for once, Torey Lovullo just used the same combination every single night instead of trying to tinker and trying to do different things. Like ever since 2023, he had just used so many different combinations instead of just defining bullpen roles again, like they clearly worked out in the 2023 postseason. And it's like, why haven't we done that in 2025, right? Why did the season start with guys not knowing when they were going to pitch? J Mart coming out in the seventh inning, sometimes to get like one out. Like it just didn't make much sense. I think it led to the lack of production we've seen. I think it even led to potentially some of the injuries we've seen as well in 2025. And so with this D-backs bullpen, with its back against the wall, Torey really doesn't have a choice right now of who to use. Like, it has to be Shelby Miller, J Mart as your 8-9 combination when the time calls, because who else do you trust? Ryan Thompson, Jeff Brigham? I don't think you trust those guys at all. So it's like, who else do you want in the back end and high leverage moments than those two guys right now? And I hope as the bullpen gets healthier and gets better, he still sticks to that combo. Now, unless AJ Puck comes back at 100% health, I could see him taking over the eighth inning. But even to Kevin Ginkel, if he comes back fully healthy, maybe he's slotted more into that seventh inning high leverage role, and you use Shelby Miller as the eighth inning guy all year long. You don't want to keep consistently moving your guys around the pen because that's how we got here. You need to have defined roles. And for someone who I think defined roles should be moved up more in the D-backs bullpen is Christian Mena, because he is someone I wish we got to see more in high leverage roles and not so much just being a long reliever. I know it probably won't happen, but he just feels too talented. And right now, we just don't have that many talented guys, that many talented relievers in the D-backs pen. I trust him kind of more than a lot of guys, and it just kind of sucks that it feels like he can only come in as a long reliever. I kind of wish he was like our seventh inning guy right now with how the bullpen is set up, because I think he's nasty. My dream would be like if there's a starter that goes 5 2/3, Mena comes in and gets the last 4 outs and then gets the ball to Shelby Miller in the eighth inning. That would be my dream scenario. I don't think it's going to happen, but Mena is still so talented, and I do at least like the fact that he's in the D-backs bullpen because he is a better option than some other guys. But the D-backs bullpen as a whole still super shaky, but wouldn't be surprised if the roles start to become crystallized just because of the situation that the D-backs bullpen is in with the injuries and the lack of production. And I think with the D-backs bullpen becoming more crystallized with the roles because of their situation, we could potentially see better results moving forward, which is crazy to think about. But I actually think the D-backs bullpen has a chance of getting better just from those defined roles, like I've been begging for all of 2025. Now, that's it for this edition of the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Deuces.